What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to my review of Braddock, Missing in Action 3, starring the legendary Chuck Norris, directed by Aaron Norris. And this is actually the 8th Chuck Norris film I'm reviewing for this Norris November 2025. If you're new to the channel, you can go back and check out those reviews and check out last year's Chuck Norris November, where I reviewed and ranked 10 Chuck Norris films. And I'm actually going to cap it at 8 this year. I was shooting for 10. You know, I watched a lot more than I reviewed last year, so I would have to rewatch like Firewalker, Delta Force. I don't quite have it in me. I think if I wait till next year, I'm going to enjoy those a lot more after having seen them last year. And I've had some technical issues come up on the channel with me having some issues getting things edited and uploaded to YouTube in a timely manner. So I'm going to get that sorted out. And I mentioned previously in my reviews of the other two Missing in Action films, I was probably going to do this one next year. Well, you know what? The other day I was like, you know what? I kind of want to see the third one now. I had seen parts of the first two on HBO. I have no idea if I ever sat back in the day. I have no recollection of whether or not I ever sat down and watched one beginning to end. I don't think I did. I just think I saw bits and pieces of them. But I have no recollection of this one. I didn't think I'd seen it. So this one, those were filmed back to back, the first two. This one actually came out some years later in 1988. Okay. And, you know, I'd heard that maybe it wasn't as good. But I was curious and I just kind of wanted to finish the trilogy. So I watched it. Overall, it was pretty good. And essentially this tells the story of Colonel Braddock after we see a flashback in the beginning of the fall of Saigon, which is really a great sequence. I mean, Aaron Norris did a great job directing that entire sequence. That's like 20 minutes of absolute chaos. Just hundreds of extras. I mean, there's some overhead shots of the streets. You know, people are trying to get into the embassy before the communists take over and everything. And there's, you know, people are rioting and all the soldiers are taking off their uniforms and throwing them in a pile. And somebody drives a truck into the embassy and a couple guys flip over the top and get hung up on barbed wire. People are setting off bombs. It's crazy stuff. I actually thought it was stock footage, to be honest with you. I was like, well, they wouldn't be able to get that many extras for this movie. Well, apparently they did, and it's really a great sequence. Well, anyway, we learn that Chuck Norris actually had a wife, a Vietnamese wife, and apparently she was pregnant. He believes that she is killed in a bombing. As all this chaos is unfolding, he actually helps somebody get onto a chopper, get to the chopper. At the end, he takes a bullet in the process and thinks that his wife is dead. He saw a burned up body wearing a bracelet. I won't go into it, but it's not his wife. So years later, and I guess the continuity works and they just didn't tell us any of this in the other films. I don't know. Okay. But years later, a reverend approaches him and says that he works for an orphanage which services Amerasian children in Vietnam, the children of former soldiers and Vietnamese women who are now sort of the outcasts in the society. And, you know, you don't go to these films for any kind of social messaging, but there's a little bit of that in here, and it's not, you know, it's done pretty well. At the end, there's a little postscript about how many Amerasian children are still left. And the casting is really good. I mean, they probably have about 36 of these kids, and they all look like they're they're Amerasian themselves. So the casting is good. So Chuck doesn't believe it when this priest tells him that he runs an orphanage and that his wife is alive. Well, then the CIA is very wary of him because of his past of, you know, not doing what he's supposed to do and kicking ass. What does he have a line in here? Oh, they say don't step on anyone's toes. And he goes, I don't step on toes. I step on necks. You know, vintage Chuck Norris. But when the CIA basically tell him, hey, why don't you go home and not mess around here? Then he knows it must be true. Like the CIA is saying it's not true, so it probably is true. So he breaks in, gets reunited with his wife. They live in like a shack. It's miserable. And those scenes are very good. And what I like about it is in Missing in Action, he teamed up with M. Emmett Walsh, and we had long sequences in Bangkok which is the jumping off point for sneaking into Vietnam. They kind of do the same thing here, but they don't really dwell on it. There's a couple chases. The police are chasing him. The CIA's chasing him, and he beats up a couple guys. He hooks up with an old Australian buddy of his who's kind of like fulfilling the role of M. Emmett Walsh. And you don't have to see all the steps that they took. All of a sudden, he's dropping him off in a plane with another Zodiac boat. This one is, the last one was bulletproof. This one is rocket powered. But they don't really bore you with the details of that. They just get right to it. So he basically makes it into Vietnam, and he whips out this gun. He's got it it's basically like a rifle with a rocket launcher underneath, which they actually have. I think they're called M203s, but this one is like a variation of that. It has rotating barrels because it's I don't know if it was an actual weapon or not, but it's a kick-ass weapon for Chuck. So Chuck goes in, gets reunited with his wife. His son, for a while, sort of believed that Daddy was coming back to rescue them, but then gave up hope. So his son's got this huge attitude. And Chuck ends up helping this whole orphanage of kids escape. So similar to him going in to get POWs to escape, now he's got these orphan kids. And the villain in this one at one point captures Chuck and tortures him, and he's a real bastard. And he does a good job. However, as the movie goes on, he's kind of reduced to just chasing Chuck and going, Braddock! I mean, once or twice would have been fine, but it was a little, the third or fourth time, he's like, Braddock, is it a spoof? So he's probably my least favorite villain out of all the villains. I mean, my favorite is still Soon-Tek Oh from Missing in Action 2, the beginning. Great actor. And, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. I have to say the best sequence was probably the opening sequence during the fall of Saigon. The rest of it was kind of familiar. Chuck kicks ass. He sneaks into camps. He beats up guards. He takes out guard towers with his grenade launcher. He's Chuck. He does Chuck things. Blows some shit up. The ending is a little bit drawn out. They come to a bridge, and I guess it's like Thailand on one side and Vietnam on the other side, and there's a standoff involving helicopters. The Vietnamese bring in these helicopters. Even their helicopters look evil. And we've got ours, and Chuck has to make it across with all these orphans, and the CIA is there and the U.S. Army's over there trying to decide whether they should be neutral or get involved, and it's pretty good. It's pretty good. It's just a little bit, a notch below the other two, I think, but it's not terrible. It's pretty much a pretty decent third part of the trilogy, and I did enjoy it. What are your thoughts about Braddock Missing in Action 3? Have you seen it? What are your thoughts about the whole series? Which one's your favorite? How would you rank them? Let me know in the comments below. And come back again next time for some more Chuck Norris reviews. I may actually have one final Chuck Norris video this month where I rank the 8 films that I reviewed this year, or maybe fold those rankings into my total rankings, because I ranked the 10 that I did last year. So I may rank them 1 to 18, or I'm not really sure. But okay, thanks a lot. Come back again, and thanks. Later.